The world has responded to threats of nuclear war from Vladimir Putin. Russia's president addressed his nation on television for the first time since the invasion of Ukraine, where he escalated war efforts.
If there is a threat to the territorial integrity of our country and for protecting our people, we will certainly use all the means available to us. And I'm not bluffing.
Sky News correspondent Annalise Nielsen joins us now live from London. Annalise, there's been violence on the streets of Russia following Putin's address.
Danica, we know there's a lot of restrictions on reporting in Russia, but social media does undercut a lot of that, and there is vision coming out of these protests across the country. There's been calls for people to take to the streets over this announcement from Vladimir Putin that he's enacting what's called a partial mobilisation of troops. Now, what that means is it's not yet conscription, but it comes very close. Up to 300,000 people who have any kind of military training or affiliation can be asked now to participate in the conflict in Ukraine. That's quite a widespread concept in Russia, where they do have military service. It's pretty easy to then be in the category of someone who's considered able to serve in this situation. Also, anyone who's trained in something like engineering, which would be useful in a war effort, can automatically have a reservist accreditation put onto them, and so that they're in that category. So it comes very close to what we would consider conscription. This has obviously spurred a lot of concern across Russia. Human rights observers have said that there's been up to 1,000 arrests since this announcement was made and these protests were happening. The Russian authorities have said anyone encouraging these kind of protests could face up to 15 years in jail. And one of the interesting things we can see from outside of Russia is the number of people rushing to buy tickets out of the country. Flight Radar is tracking the rapid increase in flights leaving Russia, and we've seen prices go up as well. So that's another aspect where we can see from the outside just how much panic there is over this announcement from Vladimir Putin.
And Annalise, US President Joe Biden has led the condemnations at the United Nations.
He has. He was one of the first major leaders to speak this morning. We are also expecting to hear from UK Prime Minister Liz Truss and Volodymyr Zelensky, the Ukrainian president himself. But Joe Biden addressed directly the concerns around not just what's been happening in Ukraine up until this point, but the speech from Vladimir Putin as well, saying that what he's saying is clearly in violation of what the United Nations stands for.
Russia has shamelessly violated the core tenets of the United Nations Charter. No more important than the clear prohibition against countries taking the territory of their neighbor by force.
The US President Joe Biden's met with the new UK Prime Minister Liz Truss in a bilateral discussion. They did speak briefly at the top in front of reporters, where they acknowledged what was happening in Ukraine and the need to be bolstering support to protect Europe. And they also talked about the energy crisis that they're facing and is going to be an issue, of course, for the United Kingdom going into winter.
We want to work more closely with the United States, especially on energy security, on our economic security, but also in reaching out to fellow democracies around the world to make sure that democracies prevail and we protect the freedom and future of our citizens.
Liz Truss is facing some major domestic issues because of Ukraine coming into office now after a 2-week reprieve during the Queen's mourning period. One of those is going to be energy costs, and there has been an announcement today that they're going to cap energy price rises for businesses in the United Kingdom, but that's a policy that's expected to cost over $40 billion if projections are correct, and so that could mean some trouble for the budget here as well. And of course, people at home are worried about keeping their lights on as well.
Annalise Nielsen live in London this morning. Thank you.